Zena Walsh stared at her genetic scanner's display, certain there must be some mistake. In 15 years of analyzing alien DNA at orbital station Helios, she had never seen anything like this. She ran the scan again, her dark eyes fixed on the shifting patterns of genetic code. The results remained the same. "This can't be right," she muttered, brushing a strand of silver-streaked black hair from her face. The specimen belonged to a young Centaurian woman who had arrived on the station that morning. A routine diplomatic visit requiring standard biological screening. But there was nothing routine about these results. The scanner's holographic display showed two distinct genetic patterns intertwined, one clearly Centaurian, with its characteristic crystalline structure, and the other, unmistakably human. More specifically, it matched Zena's own genetic profile by 50%. Her hands trembled as she initiated a third scan. The Centaurian visitor, Thera, according to her documentation, waited patiently in the quarantine chamber, her iridescent skin shifting through subtle shades of blue and green. She appeared typically Centaurian, with her elongated features and graceful movements. Nothing about her appearance suggested human ancestry. Yet the scanner didn't lie. Not 3 times in a row. "Dr. Walsh." The voice of her assistant, Dr. Raina Patel, crackled through the comm. "Is everything all right? The preliminary screening should have been completed 10 minutes ago." Zena took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Raina, I need you to come to Quarantine Lab 3. Bring the quantum sequencer. And don't tell anyone else." The confusion in Raina's voice was evident. "The quantum sequencer. But that's only 4. Just bring it, please." While waiting for Raina, Zena studied Thera through the observation window. The young Centaurian sat serenely, seemingly unaware of the bombshell the genetic scan had just dropped. How could she be part human? More importantly, how could she share Zena's specific genetic markers? The lab door whispered open as Raina entered, carrying the bulky quantum sequencer. Her dark eyes widened at the tension in Zena's posture. "What's wrong? Did the scan detect some kind of pathogen?" "Look at this." Zena transferred the scan results to the main display. "Tell me I'm not hallucinating." Raina's sharp intake of breath confirmed what Zena already knew. That's not possible. The chromosomal structure alone should make human-Centaurian hybridization impossible. We've tried for decades, To. "I know," Zena interrupted. "I wrote 3 papers on why it couldn't work. But there she is, and that's my DNA pattern mixed with Centaurian genetics." "Your DNA." Raina looked from the display to Thera, then back to Zena. "But how?" 20 years ago, I was part of the first diplomatic mission to Centauri Prime. I spent 6 months there, studying their biology, trying to understand why our species were so similar yet so incompatible. Zena's voice dropped to a whisper. "I also met someone, a Centaurian geneticist named Varen." Understanding dawned in Raina's eyes. "You and he." It wasn't allowed. Interspecies relationships were strictly forbidden. But we thought. We were both scientists. We thought we understood the impossibility of it. Zena's laugh held no humor. "Apparently, we didn't understand as much as we thought." "Dr. Walsh," Raina said carefully, "are you saying this girl is my daughter?" "Somehow, against everything we thought we knew about genetics, she's my daughter." The quantum sequencer hummed to life as Raina began a deeper analysis. "The genetic integration is perfect," she marveled. "It's not just a mixture. The human and Centaurian DNA are working together in ways we never thought possible. This could revolutionize our understanding of xenogenetics." "This could also cause a diplomatic crisis," Zena pointed out. "The Centaurian government has spent decades maintaining genetic purity. If they discover one of their own is a hybrid, what are you going to do?" Zena squared her shoulders, decision made. "First, I'm going to talk to my daughter. Then," she managed a weak smile, "then I suppose I'll figure out how to tell both our governments that everything we thought we knew about our species was wrong." She pressed the comm button. "Thura, I'm Dr. Walsh. There's something we need to discuss." The young Centaurian looked up, her iridescent skin rippling with subtle patterns that Xena now recognized as nervousness, a trait she herself had when anxious. "Is there a problem with my screening?" "No problem," Xena replied, her voice gentle. "But I believe I know why you've always felt different from other Centaurians. And I think it's time you learned the truth about who and what you really are." As Xena prepared to enter the quarantine chamber, she caught her reflection in the glass. In Thera's features, she could now see echoes of her own, subtle things she'd missed at first glance. How many others had missed them over the years? And more importantly, what would happen now that this impossible truth had been revealed? The quarantine chamber door slid open, and Xena stepped through to meet her daughter for the first time. Behind her, the genetic scanner continued to pulse, its display showing the incredible fusion of two species that should never have been compatible, yet somehow, against all odds, had created something entirely new. The revelation of Thera's genetic connection to Xena sent shockwaves through orbital station Helios. Within hours, the station's diplomatic quarter buzzed with activity as both human and Centaurian officials scrambled to understand the implications of this unprecedented discovery. Xena sat in her quarters, staring at the holographic display showing Thera's genetic profile. The soft blue glow illuminated her face as she traced the familiar patterns that mirrored her own DNA. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called, minimizing the display with a gesture. Ambassador Neria glided into the room, her iridescent scales shifting colors in the ambient light. As the senior Centaurian diplomat on Helios, she carried herself with practiced grace, but Xena could detect an undercurrent of tension in her movements. "Dr. Walsh," Neria began, her translator converting her melodic language into crisp English, "we need to discuss the situation with Thera." Xena straightened in her chair. "I assume the Centaurian Council has been informed." "They have." Neria's scales rippled with shades of deep purple concern. Xena recalled from her xenobiology studies. "This is unprecedented. There has never been a documented case of viable human Centaurian offspring. Yet here we are," Xena replied, reopening the genetic display. "The markers don't lie, Ambassador. Thera carries both human and Centaurian DNA, perfectly integrated. It shouldn't be possible, but it is," a new voice interrupted. Director Harrison Reed stood in the doorway, his usually immaculate uniform showing signs of a hastily interrupted sleep cycle. "And now we have a diplomatic situation on our hands." Xena felt her frustration rise. "This isn't a diplomatic situation, Director. This is about family. About your daughter." Reed's voice was sharp. "A daughter you didn't know existed until yesterday. Think, Dr. Walsh. Think about the implications. The Centaurian isolation protocols have been in place for decades. Cross-species relationships are strictly regulated. If word gets out that not only is hybridization possible, but that it happened right under everyone's noses, the conservative factions would use this to push for even stricter isolation." Neria finished, her scales now a troubled gray. "And the progressives would demand immediate integration. It could destabilize decades of careful diplomacy." Xena stood, her patience wearing thin. "And what about Thera? While you're all worried about politics, there's a young woman out there who just discovered her whole identity is in question. Where is she now?" "In secure quarters," Reed answered, "for her own protection." "Detention, you mean?" Xena moved toward the door, but Reed blocked her path. "Dr. Walsh, please, we need to handle this delicately." A soft chime interrupted them as Xena's comm unit activated. Dr. Raina Patel's face appeared in the air, her dark eyes wide with excitement. "Xena, you need to see this. The genetic analysis. It's not just about compatibility. There's something in the merged sequences, a pattern I'd never seen before. It's like the DNA is trying to tell us something." Reed and Neria exchanged glances. "What do you mean, Dr. Patel?" the ambassador asked. "The hybrid sections of Thera's DNA. They're not random. They're structured, almost like code. And they're active, producing proteins we've never seen before. Whatever this is, it's not just about mixing two species. It's about something more." Xena felt a chill run down her spine as she remembered something. A theory she'd developed years ago, one that had been dismissed as too fantastic to pursue. "The Forerunner Protocol," she whispered. Reed's head snapped around. "That's classified information, Dr. Walsh." "Not anymore," Xena replied, bringing up another holographic display. 20 years ago, we found fragments of alien technology that seemed to respond to specific genetic sequences. We theorized that ancient species might have left behind a genetic key, a way to access their legacy. But we could never make it work because it needed both human and Centaurian DNA, Neria finished, her scales shifting to a brilliant gold of revelation. By the first light, a sudden tremor ran through the station. Alarms began to blare as emergency lights pulsed to life. "Director Reed," a voice called over the comm. "We're detecting massive energy readings from the artifact storage section. Something's activating." Reed's face paled. "The Forerunner artifacts, they're in the same section as Thera," Xena finished, already moving toward the door. This time, no one tried to stop her. As they raced through the station's corridors, Xena's mind whirled with possibilities. She'd spent years studying the mysterious artifacts, trying to understand their purpose. Now, with Thera's existence, everything was falling into place. But was humanity ready for whatever the ancients had left behind? Another tremor shook the station, stronger this time. Ahead, the corridor to the secure quarters glowed with an otherworldly light. "Life signs," Reed demanded into his comm. "1," came the response. "It's Thera, but, sir, her biological readings are off the charts. Whatever's happening in there, she's at the center of it." Xena broke into a run. Politics, protocols, and diplomacy could wait. Right now, her daughter needed her. And perhaps together, they would unlock secrets that would change both their species forever. As they reached the secure quarters entrance, the door slid open to reveal Thera floating in a cocoon of shifting energy, her eyes glowing with ancient knowledge. The Forerunner artifacts orbited around her like satellites, each pulsing in harmony with her transformed DNA. "Mother," Thera spoke, her voice layered with harmonics that made the air itself vibrate. "I understand now. We all will." The light grew blinding, and Xena realized that this was just the beginning. Whatever the Forerunners had planned, whatever legacy they had hidden in their combined genetics, was about to change everything. And there was no turning back. The ancient energy surrounding Thera had transformed the secure quarters into something otherworldly. Floating geometric patterns traced impossible shapes in the air, while the Forerunner artifacts pulsed with a rhythm that seemed to match her heartbeat. Xena stood at the threshold, her scientific mind racing to comprehend what she was witnessing. "The patterns," Thera spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that made the station's metal walls vibrate. "They've always been inside me, trying to emerge. Now I understand why." Director Reed raised his particle shield, but Neria placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Wait," the Centaurian ambassador cautioned. "This is what the Forerunners intended. Look at the symbols." The floating geometric shapes were resolving into recognizable forms, a language neither human nor Centaurian, yet somehow comprehensible to both. Xena felt the knowledge flowing into her mind, carried by the same genetic markers she shared with her daughter. "They knew," Thera continued, slowly descending until her feet touched the floor. The artifacts continued their orbital dance around her. "The Forerunners knew our species would eventually meet, that we were both part of a larger design. They left their legacy encoded in our DNA, waiting for the right combination to unlock it." Raina's voice came over the comm, excited despite the crisis. "The protein structures we couldn't identify. They're forming quantum-entangled networks at the cellular level. It's like her hybrid DNA is acting as a biological quantum computer. More than that, Xena breathed, stepping closer to her daughter. It's a key. The Forerunners didn't just leave us technology. They left us a path to becoming something more than either of our species alone. The station's warning klaxons finally fell silent, though the emergency lights continued their rhythmic pulse. Director Reed lowered his shield, his expression torn between wonder and concern. The council will need to be informed. Both councils. They already know, Thera said, turning to face them. Her eyes had returned to normal, though faint traces of energy still coursed beneath her iridescent skin. The activation sent a signal. Right now, similar artifacts are awakening on Earth and Centauri Prime. The time of separation is ending. Neria's scales shifted through a rainbow of colors as she processed this information. There will be resistance. The conservative factions cannot stop what has already begun. Thera finished. She reached out to take Xena's hand, and the moment their skin touched, both women gasped as genetic memory flooded between them. Xena saw flashes of Thera's childhood, felt her confusion and loneliness as she grew up different from her peers. She experienced her daughter's joy in scientific discovery, so similar to her own passion for knowledge. And she felt Varen's love, his determination to protect their child even if it meant keeping her existence secret from her human mother. In turn, Thera experienced her mother's memories. The wonder of first contact with the Centaurians, the forbidden romance with Varen, and the years of unknowing separation from her daughter. Their shared tears contained traces of the same energy that powered the artifacts. The Forerunners didn't just engineer compatible DNA, Xena realized. They created the potential for true empathic bonds between our species. The technology was never meant to stand alone. It needs the emotional connection to function. Reed's comm unit chimed urgently. Director, we're receiving priority transmissions from Earth Command and the Centaurian High Council. They're requesting immediate conference with Dr. Walsh and the hybrid with Thera. Her name, Xena said firmly, still holding her daughter's hand, is Thera Walsh Varen. And yes, we'll speak with them. But first, she turned to her daughter. First, I'd like to hear about your life. 20 years is a long time to catch up on. The artifacts settled into a gentle orbit around both women as they sat together, their genetic bond humming with shared energy. Neria and Reed withdrew discreetly, leaving mother and daughter to begin bridging decades of separation. Father spoke of you often, Thera said softly. He said your love was worth any price, even if it could only last a moment. He never knew the experiment had succeeded until after I was born. By then, the political situation had become too dangerous, Xena finished, understanding flowing through their connection. The anti-integration movements on both sides. The geneticist purges. He protected you the only way he could. And now we can protect each other. Thera's smile contained both human warmth and Centaurian luminescence. The Forerunners left us more than just technology, Mother. They left us the blueprint for bringing our peoples together. Not through force or politics, but through family. Through love. As if in response to her words, the artifacts pulsed brighter, their ancient energy harmonizing with the quantum networks in their hybrid DNA. Outside the secure quarters, both human and Centaurian officials scrambled to understand the changes sweeping through their civilizations. But here, in this moment, mother and daughter began weaving together the threads of their separate lives into something new, just as their DNA had woven together to create something neither species had thought possible. The future would bring challenges, resistance, and likely conflict. But as Xena held her daughter's hand, feeling the power of their shared heritage flowing between them, she knew that the barriers between their peoples had already begun to fall. The scanner's discovery of Thera's true identity hadn't just reunited a family. It had initiated a transformation that would reshape both their species forever. The joint conference chamber aboard Helios Station hummed with tension as holographic representatives from Earth and Centauri Prime faced the unprecedented situation before them. Xena and Thera stood together, their shared genetic energy creating subtle patterns in the air that the station's sensors struggled to interpret. The implications are staggering, Earth's science director Reeves stated, his holographic form flickering with static. If the Forerunner artifacts are truly awakening across both our worlds, then we must contain this situation immediately, interrupted Counselor Vex of the Centaurian Genetic Purity Board, his scales dark with concern. These hybrid abnormalities are exactly what the Forerunners intended. Thera spoke, her voice carrying that strange harmonic that made even the holographic projectors resonate. We've decoded more of their language. Mother, show them. Xena activated the data display, and the chamber filled with translucent symbols, the same ones that had appeared during Thera's transformation. But now they told a story, one that made both human and Centaurian representatives fall silent in awe. The Forerunners weren't just an ancient species, Xena explained, the symbols flowing around her like water. They were many species who learned to combine their strengths, to evolve together rather than separately. What they left behind wasn't just technology, it was a roadmap for transcendence. Director Reed, standing at the chamber's edge, stepped forward. Dr. Walsh, are you suggesting that this hybrid DNA sequence is just the beginning? Thera finished. The quantum networks forming in our cells, they're not just connecting me to the artifacts. They're connecting to everything. To the station's systems, to the other awakening sites, to the very fabric of space-time itself. As if to demonstrate, she raised her hand. The holographic projectors flickered, and suddenly the representatives weren't just seeing them. They were feeling what they felt. The bond between mother and daughter, the excitement of discovery, the potential humming in their shared genes. The Centaurian science minister, her scales shimmering with wonder, spoke first. This is impossible. Yet, I feel it. The quantum resonance patterns match ancient prophecies we dismissed as metaphor. Because they weren't your prophecies, came a new voice. Everyone turned as Varen himself stepped through the chamber doors, his Centaurian features dignified with age, but still carrying the strength Xena remembered. They were left for us by the Forerunners, scattered through both our cultures, waiting for the right moment. Father, Thera's joy pulsed through the quantum field, making the artifacts orbit faster. Varen moved to join his family, and the moment he completed their circle, the energy in the chamber intensified. The three of them stood linked by blood, by choice, and by the ancient legacy encoded in their genes. 20 years ago, Varen addressed the assembly. I made a choice to protect my daughter, to hide the miracle of her existence until the time was right. That time is now. Through their strengthening bond, Xena felt the years of his sacrifice, his loneliness, his determination to prepare Thera for this moment. Their old love hadn't died. It had transformed into something deeper, just as their species were being invited to transform. The Forerunner sites are fully activated on both worlds, Reed reported, checking his data feed. We're detecting quantum entanglement on a planetary scale. Whatever's happening, we couldn't stop it if we wanted to. The question is, Reeves interjected, do we want to stop it? This could be the greatest leap forward in human history, in both our histories. Counselor Vex's scales had shifted from dark concern to a deep, thoughtful blue. The purity laws were meant to protect our species. But perhaps true purity lies in fulfilling our potential, not refusing to evolve. The chamber's quantum field suddenly pulsed, and new holographic images appeared. Other hybrids, in secret places across both worlds, their dormant genes awakening. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Children of forbidden loves, of secret experiments, of accidents and design, all carrying the Forerunner legacy in their DNA. We're not alone, Thera breathed, wonder in her voice. We never were. The Forerunners seeded both our species with compatible genes, knowing that love would eventually bring them together. Every hybrid child born was proof their plan was working. Xena squeezed her daughter's hand, feeling Varen's strength on her other side. And now those children will help guide our peoples into the future the Forerunners envisioned. Not through force or politics, but through the same thing that brought us together. Love. Varen finished, his voice soft but carrying to every corner of the chamber. The one force that transcends species, transcends space, and time itself. The Forerunners knew that only love could drive evolution forward. The artifacts orbited their family circle, their ancient energy harmonizing with the quantum field that now connected all hybrid children across two worlds. In the conference chamber, human and Centaurian representatives began to understand that they were witnessing not just the reunion of one family, but the birth of a new era for both their species. The scanner's simple genetic test had unveiled not just Thera's identity, but humanity's next great leap forward. And as the quantum legacy of the Forerunners continued to unfold, Xena knew that this was only the beginning of their transformation. 1 year after the revelation that shook two worlds, Helios Station had transformed into something its designers could never have imagined. Quantum-enhanced crystals grew along its corridors, merging seamlessly with the metal structure. Hybrid children from both Earth and Centauri Prime filled its halls, learning to control their awakening abilities under the guidance of those who had first discovered the truth. Xena stood in the newly constructed synthesis chamber, watching as her daughter led a class of young hybrids through their first quantum resonance exercises. The sight still filled her with wonder. Human and Centaurian features blended in infinite variations, each child a unique expression of what their species could become together. Still amazed, Varen asked, stepping up beside her. Their own bond had deepened over the past year, transformed by shared purpose and the quantum connection they now shared through their daughter. After everything we've seen. Always, Xena replied, taking his hand. Their fingers intertwined, iridescent scales against human skin. Remember when we thought we were being so rebellious, falling in love despite the laws? And all along, we were fulfilling an ancient plan. His scales rippled with amusement. Though I doubt the Forerunners anticipated quite so much chaos in the process. The initial months after the awakening had indeed been chaotic. Conservative factions on both worlds had resisted, crying out against genetic pollution and the loss of species purity. But it's hard to argue with transcendence. As more hybrid children awakened to their abilities, as the quantum network spread its connection through both populations, resistance had given way to wonder. Mother, Father, Thera called from the chamber floor. They're ready for the next phase. The young hybrids gathered around her practically vibrated with excitement. Today they would attempt their first group quantum fusion, a melding of minds and energy that demonstrated the true potential of their combined heritage. Xena and Varen joined their daughter in the center of the chamber. The Forerunner artifacts, now permanently integrated into the station's architecture, pulsed in response to their presence. The family bond between them, strengthened by a year of shared purpose, hummed with familiar energy. Remember, Thera addressed her students, the quantum connection isn't about power. It's about understanding, about bridging the gaps between all forms of life. The Forerunners gave us this gift, not so we could transcend our physical forms, but so we could transcend our limitations. The children joined hands, forming a circle. Human eyes and Centaurian scales glowed with shared purpose as they opened themselves to the quantum field. Above them, the station's new crystalline growths sang in harmony with their rising energy. Through their family bond, Xena felt Thera guiding the young ones, showing them how to weave their consciousness into the greater whole without losing their individual essence. It was a delicate balance, one that reflected the larger challenge their hybrid society faced. Connection achieved, announced the station's AI. Its own systems now quantum-enhanced through its interaction with hybrid minds. Quantum coherence at optimal levels. In the center of the circle, reality itself seemed to bend. The children's combined energy created a window into potential, glimpses of futures where humanity and Centaurians continued to evolve together, reaching heights neither species could achieve alone. Director Reed, now a staunch supporter of the hybrid program, watched from the observation deck. The latest reports from Earth and Centauri Prime show a 30% increase in spontaneous hybrid births. He told them through the quantum link they all shared. Always to parents who chose love over prejudice, the forerunners were right. You can't force evolution. You can only create the conditions for it to flourish. And the key condition, Varen added, was simply allowing people to love who they loved. The demonstration ended with a flash of quantum light that rippled through the station's crystalline network. The young hybrids slowly separated, their eyes wide with wonder at what they had glimpsed together. That was amazing, one young girl exclaimed, her scales shimmering with excitement. Did you see the possible futures? Did you feel how connected everything is? And that's just the beginning, Thera told them with a smile. Each generation of hybrids is stronger than the last, more attuned to the quantum field. Who knows what you'll be capable of in a few years? Later, as the family stood together in the station's quantum-enhanced observation dome, they watched the stars with new eyes. The quantum network that connected all hybrid minds also gave them a deeper awareness of the cosmos itself. They could feel the echo of forerunner signals coming from distant stars. More catches of knowledge waiting to be discovered, more paths of evolution to explore. They're out there, Thera said softly. Other species, other combinations. The forerunners seeded their legacy throughout the galaxy, waiting for species to learn to come together. And we're ready to find them, Zena agreed, feeling the truth of it in their shared connection. Not as humans or Centaurians, but as something new, something better. The station hummed around them, its quantum-enhanced systems resonating with their thoughts. Above, the stars seemed to pulse in welcome, calling them to continue the journey the forerunners had begun so long ago. A simple genetic scan had started it all, one moment of discovery that revealed not just a hidden daughter, but a hidden destiny for two species. As Zena held her family close, feeling the quantum bond that linked them to each other and to all hybrid minds across two worlds, she knew that their real journey was just beginning. The stars awaited, and they would meet them together, united by the greatest force in any universe, love that transcended all boundaries, even those written in the very code of life itself.